Let us reveal initiation secrets. Just as Sturgeon Law reminds us that 90% of everything is crap, allow me to remind you that it applies not only to institutions, but to people as well. And sadly, meditation teachers. Many meditation teachers, perhaps 90%, think that Yang's attributes are a good thing. They think it's wonderful to be rigid, fearful, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. But if you ask me, all these people succeed in doing is manipulating and disempowering their students with fear, rigidity, and elitism. And that's about as far as you can get from peace. But there's always been a minority of teachers who choose to be flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Two come to mind. Back in the 1800s, as a very young man, probably closer to, well, in the very big, as a very young man, Zapatul Rinpoche wrote a very Yang-oriented meditation manual that's still treasured today by other people who are patriarchal. But he grew, he evolved, and at the very end of his life, he wrote a shorter, radically different meditation manual. In it, he promised that anybody who practices the instructions in his manual are spontaneously giving everybody else tantric empowerments, thus making tantric empowerments unnecessary and obsolete. But wait, there's more. In the 6th century of the Common Era, the first teacher of Dzogchen, Gaurab Dorje, in his source text, Dorje Sampa Namka Che, which translates as the total space of Vajrasattva, he taught that we have all the tools we need to be a Buddha within us, within our central nervous system. We have the mechanism for mindfulness already within us. We have the mechanism for meditation already within us. We have the mechanism for the highest form of love, which is spontaneous and uncontrived, within us as well. This radical teacher taught that we don't need people. We don't need teachers. We can do this on our own. This is a radical teaching that has been suppressed by many beat-faced, angry, self-important people who would scream curses upon you in the name of spirituality. You don't need me, but if you want my help, you got it, and you got it for free, no strings attached. I promise you, everything you need to become a Buddha, you will learn in tonight's live stream. I'm so sure of it, I'll stake your reputation on it. I think it could be quite lovely if together as a team we chanted the Tuesday evening excerpt of the total space of Vajrasattva. But before we do, allow me to remind you that if any point at all during the remainder of this evening's live stream, you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or their application, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Be sure to press the send icon. I check for questions at least once every 9 minutes or so. Together. Coining the expression gateway to the Sata. They seek the path by isolating the mind, maintaining isolation in a secluded place. If we examine well, this is conceptual meditation. Again, those who prize being rigid, fearful, controlling, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Oh gosh, I forgot a word here. Elitist. Teach the value of the meditator isolating themselves from society. Some are malicious, many are most are just lazy-minded. But either way, by forgetting that humans have evolved to be social, they do far more harm than good. Humans go a little bit nutty in isolation, so much so that the UN categorizes solitary confinement as torture. Let's continue. They coined the terms cause and effect, but both virtues and negativities dissolve completely. They say we will get out of this world and nurture supreme complacency in accepting and rejecting. Just as impermanence makes of spooky karma a phantom, likewise renunciation drags us even deeper into the quagmire of duality's desire and dread. Together. Attachment and non-attachment are the path of words, and something in the middle is the same like an echo. The extremes of dread and desire and all points in between sound resounding as we notice during our inhalation, yet feel as non-graspable as an echo as we relax during our exhalation. Happiness and suffering have the same cause, said Vajrasattva, Lord of Beings. Although prized and shunned, happiness and suffering are just emotions, nothing more. Come, let us rest in non-duality. So, let me elucidate. When we are dual, we think, oh, this is happiness and this is sadness. When we are non-dual, we think, oh, this is emotion. And so the question is not changing what we feel, just looking at what we feel through the monocle of non-duality. And of course, when I say monocle, I'm thinking of the Planters Peanuts man, aren't you? Together. Attachment, anger, and ignorance arrive from the path of total bodhi. And I'm going to add a word here. Make it a little bit smaller and italicized. Let's take it from the top. Attachment, anger, and ignorance arise from the path of enlightenment's total bodhi. The five sense objects of enjoyment too are said to be the ornament of the Dharma-datta dimension. Although some who prize this Triskin, although those who prize being rigid, fearful, controlling, wow, I keep forgetting the word elitist. Cryptic, competitive, and cruel, forsake desire, dread, and dullness, as well as the delights of sight, sound, sensation, flavor, and scent. Those who treasure being flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind, recognize them as the fuel that turns the gears of the enlightenment machine. Ooh, what do you know? That's the end of tonight's Shastra. That's our fancy Scrabble word, isn't it? Okay, so what I'd like to do now is start the meditation phase of tonight's practice. Before we do that, let's have less than 1 minute of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. I've spent more than half my life studying, practicing, and then reverse engineering the teachings, practices, and techniques of each school of Buddhism so that I could play the Yoda to your Luke Skywalker and help you to quickly and easily become the person that your dog already thinks you are. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Whoops, I gotta back up a couple pages. There we go. Let's perform, rather than pray to a real or imagined celestial entity, let's use the following recitations to exercise our empathetic and enthusiastic intentions. We'll begin with a more literal approach, implementing the triplet chant. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. These three highlighted words are so useful that they've earned the metaphoric nickname of the three wish-fulfilling jewels, inferred in our final chant that is more figurative and more concise, and it's going to implement the bookend chant together. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the three jewels. At last we come to meditation, so let us review meditation's instructions. Mindfulness and meditation are known by many terms, including Zen, Proto-Zen, Chandhyana, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati Yoga, Dzogchen, and Trekcho. Despite the fanciness of these names and the sheer gross tonnage of information on this page, it's much simpler than what we have been led to believe. Mindfulness. Let's begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which is ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord, and has evolved to help us to not to actively concentrate, but instead to merely perceive, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. This is typified by the 12-syllable recitation of inhalation. Perceiving this very turbulent play of mind, we've been led to believe by patriarchy that a monkey mind is a bad thing, but no, we've evolved to have a monkey mind. We evolved from monkeys. What are some of the antics of our mind? Our mind sees, hears, feels, tastes, and smells, and the like. Our mind also emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines. Consider, if you will, a very wonderful symbol or icon of Dzogchen. We see a couple, Kuntu Zangpo, Kuntu Zangmo Yabyum, sitting in tantric union. The woman, the color of a cumulus cloud, is sporting with wild abandon. Doesn't that remind you of the play of mind? The fellow is not controlling. He's not threatened. He's completely secure and laid back and just enjoying the moment. And that's reminiscent of meditation. You see, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we access the parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lumbar region of the spinal cord as well as the cervical region. It has evolved to help us to both physically relax as well as mentally release, that we too might be laid back and just kick back and enjoy the moment, as is typified by the exhalation recitation, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Good news. We don't have to practice the rigidity that strives to believe in literal non-graspability. We don't have to practice the pseudo-intellectualism that tries to prove literal non-graspability. Fortunately, most of us were taught as early as the 4th grade that many phrases, many utterances are figurative. Some are simile, some are metaphoric, some are hyperbolic. Consider, if you will, the phrase non-graspable. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. It could feel as if it was as non-graspable as the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand. This is the same simile, is known by many names. Is known as selflessness. It's, that which we notice during our inhalation. Once we begin to relax into our exhalation, we feel as if it was as non-graspable as if it was not us, as if it had never been born. And there you go. The terminology of Buddhism demystified. Together as a team. Oh, look, a question. Let's see here. James Monaghan, I'm giving you a Yoda 3. Well, so glad you showed up and asked me a good question. Does monkey mind work in the limbic system? Monkey mind works everywhere. It's an equal opportunity spaz. We've all been spazzes. Many years ago, more than 30 years ago, I was involved in a fundamentalist organization, and many of the women would spend their Sunday nights drinking coffee and jumping around listening to Led Zeppelin. And that's wonderful and that's playful. And each of us have the capacity to drink soda or coffee and jump around to our favorite music or reenacting our favorite scene from our favorite action movie. We all have the playful child within us. So the very fact, so let's go back to the monkey mind. The monkey mind, the phrase monkey mind was developed by people who didn't understand the mind. People who were acting under the influence of patriarchy. People who thought they had to control everything. They had to control their friends, neighbors, lovers, parents, children, and even their own mind. And they just like sadistically taking a butterfly and pinning it to a piece of corkboard. They wanted to pin our mind and hold it still so it would submit to dissection. But that's not the way of yin. What is the way of yin? Well, as I've mentioned exhaustively, the way of yin is to be flexible, loving, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Consider, if you will, going back maybe 2 million years ago when the anthropods left the trees and began exploring the savannas of Africa. Imagine there were two. Click and clack. Click discovers a ladybug and he focuses on it one pointedly. And he is completely oblivious to the sound of a predator approaching, and click, he becomes lunch. What about clack? Well, clack, like me and you and perhaps Barney Fife from the Andy Griffith Show, is a nervous motherfucker. He is a twitchy bastard. Yeah. When he hears something rustle, he shakes his friend by the shoulder. His friend's lost in his worship of the ladybug. He just books. He's making time. He's setting the 6-minute mile. He's out of there. We are his descendants. We are the descendants of the twitchy sons of bitches. That's us. We are wired to be twitchy. Sometimes we're mellow, sometimes we're twitchy. Sometimes if we drink enough coffee, we might be momentarily hyperfixated. But 9 times out of 10, we're twitchy or sanguine, and they're both useful to the spiritual path. So when our mind is jumping about, that's okay. When you breathe in, watch it. When you breathe out, relax. We'll get more. We'll explore that even deeper in a few moments. Now, together as a team, let us meditate as profoundly as Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo. Let's switch gears from the 12-syllable exercises to the 3-syllable exercises. As we inhale, let's silently and mentally recite, "Notice this." And as we exhale, let's silently and mentally recite, "Relaxing." As we sit here in meditation, we might begin to remember something, perhaps a conversation, perhaps a movie, perhaps a line from a song. And so we could silently and mentally replace the phrase "notice this" with the label "recollect." Or any of the other 5 labels we mentioned earlier during our explanation. If you begin to feel a sensation in your body, be it pleasure or pain, you can simply describe it as sensation. If you become aware of the sounds in your environment, you could silently and mentally recite the label resonance. If behind your eyelids you experience a momentary light show, you could play with the label appearance. If you find yourself planning a future conversation, you might play with the label cognition. You'll notice these labels are 3 syllables each. If you begin to feel uptight and anxious that you might do label things imperfectly, well, that's nothing less than an emotion. If you begin to get lost in memories, that's fine. Just use the label recollect. Let's switch gears now to the 1-syllable versions of these exact same exercises. As we breathe in, we can silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. As we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite the 1-syllable verb ease, which is a synonym for relax. Now, when we work with 1-syllable labels, there's some overlap. For instance, both sensation and emotion are feel. When we recall, we're just, instead of using the word recall, we're going to use the preposition then. And instead of imagine, we're going to work with the verb dream. Welcome to the live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, type your question in the chat window. One of the many fringe benefits of a healthy meditation practice, we're talking about 5 or 10 minutes once every 12 hours or so. If you're doing it right, you'll find that your choices and your utterances and your deeds flow less and less from scatteredness or contrivance and instead flow from a place of centered spontaneity. What if both dread and desire were simply emotions? What if both frustration and peace were simply emotions? What if instead of chasing one and fleeing the other, we could simply observe and release? Welcome to this evening's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in the chat window. In the interim, as you breathe in, you can perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly, as silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. And as you exhale, you can physically relax and mentally release, as silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb, ease. Good evening, Alejandro. Together, let us seal this evening's practice with a bit of the old chanting, beginning with kind ethics and then concluding with the 4 immeasurables. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness, spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 11 hours or so, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's morning meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.